let's take a look at how you did on brief exercise 2.6. It's kind of fun to see you guys try it on your own. Now remember, my answer key is missing a post-reference column, and it doesn't have the explanations. For post-references, since I wasn't guiding you, you could just like put a number sign there, or if you feel like you could guess what the account number would be, it's fine. For the first one, and I don't have my book in front of me, but I assume the owner started some business and invested $8,000 for startup. Cash is our debit because it's going up. Owner's capital is our credit. It's also going up. Remember, debit and credit doesn't necessarily mean increase and decrease. The second one, I'm not sure how they worded it, and it's the first time we see prepaid insurance. If you got stumped on this one, that's where you'd want to go back and look at those transactions that I showed you pictures of. So prepaid insurance, why is that an asset? If we buy an insurance policy, what do we own there? Yes, Carrie. Yes, if there's a damage, if there's a fire, if there's a hurricane, if there's a tornado and something gets damaged, the insurance company is going to give us money to fix it. Okay? The reason it's called prepaid insurance, you don't ever pay for insurance after you need it. You prepay in the event that you will need it. It's an intangible asset. You can't touch it. Okay? Like if you're driving your car around, there's an insurance policy that goes with it. You can't touch it like you can the steering wheel. You could go find your insurance policy and touch the card, but that's about it. The asset's protecting in the event of a loss. What asset went down? Why? We prepaid it. Yep. Rarely will you see an AR go down for this, or excuse me, not AR, an AP. Typically, it's prepaid with cash. On the 16th, it looks like we sold something. So we see service revenue as the credit. The other half has to be a debit. Well, that makes sense. The customer paid with cash. What other way can customers pay for a service? Accounts receivable, and in that case, the asset would be going up as well. The last one, it looks like we're paying our employees. How nice of us. Okay, that's a good thing. If we're going to pay our employees, I know the credit's cash. Cash is going down, so I'm searching for the debit. Well, salaries and wages expense. And that's a debit because it's making the overall owner's equity go down. So there you have it. I would like to do, let's see, how are we doing with time? Awesome. I would like to do brief exercise 2.8 together, and then that's where we're going to stop. You finally get to post something. Ooh, okay. Posting ends up being very annoying because it's putsy. Okay. Posting is simply the process of pulling from what to where? Pulling from journal to ledgers. You should see little baby ledgers there, correct? Okay. You have 3 of them the way it looks. That would never happen. There's way more usually. Can you guys look past the answers for a minute and just mark them up with me? Cool. What number is cash? Does it have a number? No? Let's give it a number. 101. This is the book being very disjointed, and I don't like it. AR, asset. Is it a pretty liquid asset? I could assign 102 to it, but what would be the problem with that? No wiggle room then. So a better number would be 110. Service revenue is typically a 401. Okay. Now, let's also add, do you guys have the titles in there? Do you have cash? Okay, good. Let's say that this is an asset and accounts receivable is an asset. The debit is the normal balance because it's on the left side of the big P, the normal balance. Okay, you've following all the rules. So where will the increases be for those? Debit or credit? Debit. So I want you to put a plus sign right in there. Opposite of the plus sign, put a minus. Then we're this normal balance area, It's always, okay, are we adding or subtracting to the normal balance? Service revenue is part of what? Asset, liability, or owner's equity. Okay. That has a normal credit balance. So the credit is the plus, the debit is the minus, and it's going to be one of those accounts that rarely has a debit. You'll learn later how that works if someone decides to return something. Well, it's hard to return a service. Like if you have a bad haircut, they're not going to give you your hair back. Okay? So that's coming in a later lesson. I like to mark up all of my stuff like that before I even start. I hope you agree that that's helpful. Okay? My favorite is when students start writing all over their tests, all my little sign points, which is helpful. Okay? So let's take a look. Where are we here? Brief exercise 2.8. So I'm on the top of page 81. Selected journal entries for the Joel Burgess Company are presented back in brief exercise 2.7. So back on page 80, do you see those journal entries that they've done for us? They want us to post them to the ledger. So Carrie, I think I'll always bring you up here about posting. In this case, it would have been doing laundry on the weekend because they've done all the journal. Now we have to do all of the posting. So do you see May 5th, May 12th, May 15th? How many actual posting transactions are we going to do? There's 3 transactions, but how many times are we going to post? 6, because for every transaction, there's at least 1 debit and at least 1 credit. So let's look at the first one. AR was debited for $4,100. So you suck that out of there, drive it over to which account? AR. So over there on the date, put May 5th. Explanations are not needed yet. When I teach you about adjusting and closing entries, we'll use them. The reference number means which journal page did it come from? What do you think the J stands for? Journal page, okay? Sometimes it's journal page 2, journal page 3. Later you're going to learn there's J, there's G, there's S, there's CP, there's CS. Okay, so we'll save that for another chapter. We debited it for $4,100. $4,100 plus nothing is $4,100. So what they're saying is instead of wading through all of that stuff, we can now know an exact snapshot of accounts receivable. Are we done? Where do we need to bring that 110? Back to the journal. Now, did any of your classmates before you actually write numbers in there? Okay, I want to just show you like I did. Ooh, this is my book, so whatever. So I'd actually bring it back to the journal and I'd write it in as 110. Okay, you don't have to do that, but I'm just saying that's how the process would work. Are we done with the first transaction? No, we've only done the debit side, so now we have to do the credit side of the May 5th transaction. We had service revenue credited for $4,100. So you'd suck it out of there, go find service revenue. May 5th, we don't need to explain. It came from journal page 1. You guys see where the J1 is coming from? You see that J and the 1? Okay, good. It was a credit. The other one was a debit, so this one has to be a credit of $4,100. Look up, plus with no balance, $4,100 plus nothing is $4,100. What would we do with that 401? Bring it back to the journal. I forget I'm in the way, sorry. Okay, on to our second transaction. Tell me what happened in the second transaction, just by looking at the entry. Or you can look at the explanation. We got cash from what? AR went down, so some customer owed us money and we got the money and AR went down. Are we happy about that asset going down? Yes. Usually we're not happy about assets going down. In this case, whoo, got our money. Okay, so 2 parts here. We got to first suck that cash out, lup, 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 go find cash in the ledger, May 12th. Don't need to explain anything, but we do need to reference that it came from journal page 1. We had a debit of $2,400. I look above there, I see a plus. Well, there was nothing in the balance before, so now we have a new balance of $2,400. Take that 101 and go slap it back on the journal. So do you see how the two work? They're like cross-referencing. It's a paper trail. It's hard for accountants to be unethical when they're doing this. If you want to know how to do it, watch Office Space. They set the old movie Office Space. You guys know what I'm talking about? Oh, if it wasn't so inappropriate, I'd show it in the class, but it's not appropriate. Okay, there's a second half of this transaction. AR went down. So before AR was sitting there with a $4,100 balance, May 12th comes along, still from journal page 1. We credited for $2,400. Did they pay their bill? Some of it. So it's sitting there now with a new updated balance. Do you see why I put the pluses and minuses in there for you? It really helps. Really, really helps. We'd take that 110 and we'd put it back over here in the journal. Last transaction. On the 15th, we received cash. So cash went up by $3,000. On the 15th, J1, $3,000 debit. I'm going to add it to whatever's sitting there in our balance. Before it was nothing. Well, we've got a $2,400 balance. We're adding another 3. So now our new balance of cash is $5,400. Will you see cash credited once in a while too? And we'd bring that 101 back to the journal. The last half of it, and maybe some of you are already done with this, that's great. Service revenue is credited. Rarely will you see service revenue debited. It's just adding more to the money we've made and the overall worth for the owner. I want to show you what we're going to do on Monday, just so you can see that it's not so disjointed all the time. Let me just show you what we're doing on Monday. Okay, on Monday, we're going to journalize and post for the same problem. Instead of it being like, oh, here's your pre-done journal, now post, or here's your, instead we're actually going to do journal entries that we push to posting and bring back. So the two actually like will function as like a pairing, okay? We'll probably do a little bit more with like some Q&A just to get you, again, thinking about the vocabulary. And then by Tuesday, I'll lecture and we'll do some end of chapter stuff for the last part of the chapter. We're only week 1 into the chapter though, you guys. We have a full another week and then even a third week to get ready for this test. So your lecture will span about a week and a half. We'll do problems for a couple days. You probably won't even have much homework at all for this chapter because you'd even be able to do the practice test in class.